What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PickSix podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Wednesday, May the 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Joining me to break down the NFC draft grades, Ryan Wilson and John Breech. What's up, fellas?
Hey.
Hi, Brinson. I got my tequila stash ready. I'm ready to go for Cinco.
That is a thing of milk, Breech.
It's actually Body Armor Light. It's the official drink of John Breech.
Would it be surprising, first of all, the only advertisements that are allowed on this podcast without going through sales are the ones that I do. Second of all, Wilson, would you be surprised at all if Breech was one of those dudes who like put tequila in his Body Armor Light?
No, look at him. He's not wearing a shirt underneath that sweatshirt he's got zipped up, number one. Number two, he's taking like weight gainer and protein powder, and he's somehow shrinking. So he's doing it the wrong way.
No, I'm chasing around a 12-month-old baby all day. The weight just burns off.
Why are you trying to drink Body Armor Light? What's the point?
No sugar.
Is it like hydrate? I just don't understand what the point is.
I like drinking energy drinks, moving around. It's got B vitamins. It's got some.
All right, enough of this advertisement. Make sure to check out the AFC draft grades. They are in the feed. We are, as I mentioned, we're doing NFC draft grades right now, and you can check out draft reactions and draft superlatives from the feed as well. We have 3 days of coverage in the draft. And while you're doing stuff for us, checking stuff out, make sure to check out John Breech's daily PickSix podcast newsletter, cbssports.com/newsletter. Breech brings you the most entertaining, most informative NFL newsletter in the business.
David. If you're going to sign up for one newsletter, not even NFL, just one newsletter, period, it should be this one. You won't regret it. I promise.
I agree. We will be pulling grades from Pete Prisco. If you see us on YouTube, youtube.com/PickSix, episodes drop a little early there sometimes. If you see the grade pop up on the screen, don't yell at us in the comments. Yell at Pete Prisco. If you have a grade that you hate, at Prisco CBS on Twitter. And I hope everybody that listens to this, I hope every single one of you finds a grade you don't like and you tweet at Prisco CBS and say, you suck. Here's why. And the reason I hope you do that is Pete is too busy to come on the podcast. Can you believe it?
Classic Pete.
I can believe it.
Norris on instead of Pete this week. Pretty excited about that, actually. New voice, bigger voice, more accurate draft.
Josh Norris came in number 1 in the mock draft prediction. So I think Pete.
Talk about that.
Pete was 100.
In Pete's defense, he's worth more in the past 5 days than he has in like the past 6 years combined. He did the grades. He had his power rankings come out on Tuesday. The man has been on fire, but his keyboard doesn't even work anymore.
Brinson, how long does it take for you to play a round of golf?
12, 14 hours. Just like Pete, right? No other time of the day to take 30 minutes to talk to the company you work for, the only NFL podcast one of the 2 NFL podcasts we have. I guess B-Mac and Pat Pete count too. But you would think that Pete would be willing to, help out and to discuss his grades that he gave to all the teams on this podcast, but he wasn't. So we'll have to just maybe float something to management about Pete not being a team player. We'll see what happens. We also have plenty of time this offseason to break down every single team. So if we don't get to your team or 20 minutes on your team, that's why we have to cover the entire NFC. And if you feel like you got shortchanged, you have a draft question, and you want something specifically answered about your team, about the draft, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast with your name and your question in there, and we will answer it on a mailbag. We will have lots of mailbags coming up this offseason, so plenty of time to do that. We will start in the NFC East, and we will begin, because this is Debo's podcast, with the Philadelphia Eagles, who got a C+ from Pete Prisco. I'm a little surprised that they got a C+ because, they were bold, they were ballsy. They moved up in the first round. They traded with the freaking Cowboys. It's wrong. It's like cats and dogs living together under the same roof. They trade with the Cowboys to move up 2 spots to leapfrog the Giants and to grab Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith in the first round. They then come back and get another Bama player, Landon Dickerson, in the second, and before picking up a defensive lineman, Milton Williams, in the third, and Zech McPherson, a cornerback whose name is probably Zach, but
Zech, Z-E-C-H, Zech.
Interesting. What did you think of their draft, Wilson?
Well, it's funny you asked because as we're speaking here on the 4th, this comes out the 5th, but my draft rankings have just been released on cbsports.com. And so I did something different this time. Instead of just sort of giving a grade, I had graded all these players before the draft after watching them and given where I thought they might get drafted for the big board. And then I compared where I thought they got drafted, where they actually got drafted. And if some players went later than I thought, that's good for the team because you didn't overdraft a player. If some players went well earlier than I expected them to, then those teams didn't grade out as well because they overdrafted a player that I thought maybe was a third-round pick, and they ended up going late in round 1. All that said, I had the Eagles as having the 6th best draft. I thought they did pretty good.
Did Debo pay you to up them, move them up in the rankings?
He did.
Okay.
But the only issue I had with the guys they drafted in terms of who I thought they overdrafted was Landon Dickerson, the 2nd-round pick. And the only reason for that is because the injury history. He had an ACL in the last season, and he's had injuries before, and that's it. Milton Williams went right where I thought he would go. Zach McPherson, you mentioned, went right where I thought he would go. Kenneth Gainwell went almost 3 rounds later than I thought. I had him as like a low 2nd round, early 3rd round guy, and he went in the top of the 5th round, so that's a great pick. And then Marlon Tuipulotu, I had him going as like a mid 3rd round pick. He went in the 6th round. So all those guys were underdrafted, I guess is the phrase you could use, and that had a lot to do with why I like their draft. So we'll see. I mean, if I'm terrible at putting draft grades on these guys, then it won't matter. But in terms of just doing something a little different and not saying D- or B+, but this is actually real wins over Wilson. Breech.
You know who would give the Eagles draft a C+? Tom Donahoe, their senior player, director of player personnel. I think my favorite part of the draft, one of my top 5 moments, was when the Eagles went viral in the 3rd round because they selected Milton Williams. And then there's a video clip of Howie Roseman like trying to fist bump people, and Donahoe's just looking at him like he just pulled off the worst draft pick of all time. He was not thrilled that Roseman took Milton Williams. And what happened there is the Eagles traded back. Donahoe, a couple of the guys wanted to draft Aleem McNeil. And so I think the Eagles, who traded back, I think only 2 or 3 spots, nothing big, they assumed that Milton Williams and Aleem McNeil would both be available and they can make their decision at 73. And boom, the Lions came in at 72, took Aleem McNeil. So they lost him. And then they took Milton Williams because they didn't have a choice at that point. And so maybe that is why maybe Prisco's boys with Tom Donahoe. Everyone's upset about that 3rd round pick. In the end, I agree with everything you said. I thought they had a solid draft. I mean, I don't think you can really, there are a lot of picks where you just kind of shake your head and you wonder what's going on. I didn't think the Eagles really had any of those. You don't usually have a draft with this many picks where you could see most of these guys being a contributor. But the Eagles did that. I like this draft.
Or maybe Aleem McNeil was just the best draft prospect out there, even before the first day of the draft, and they knew they were about to steal a 1st-round pick in the 3rd round, and he was mad about it. That would be understandable.
So wait a second. I was looking at something real quick. They wanted Aleem McNeil and had to settle for Milton Williams. Is that what the upset faces were about?
That is what the upset faces were about.
Also, the Lions didn't trade up. The Eagles traded down.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Eagles had 70.
How many did they trade down? 2 or 3?
3 spots, and then the Lions took Aleem there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Eagles were at 70, and they traded back to 73 and figured both their guys would be available, and then the Lions took Aleem McNeil at 72.
Also, they dropped from 70 to 73, and all they added was 191st overall.
And so Donahoe was mad at that too. He didn't think, why give up our guy for a 6th-round pick?
How'd you find all that out, Breech?
There's a bunch of quotes.
Howie Roseman talked about it because he was asked, like,
yeah.
And Howie Roseman justified it by kind of saying, some of the guys in the office talking about Tom Donahoe spent 6 months scouting guys like this, and you spent 6 months, you think you're going to get a guy, and he's right there for you. You trade back 3 picks probably because of the GM, and you lose out on that guy that you've been scouting. Like, I totally understand that reaction, and trust me, I think a lot of the Eagles fan base would give Howie that reaction if they had a chance to interact with them.
Oh, well, here's something that
that 191st pick, it was technically, so it's from Carolina, but the Panthers acquired 191 overall in exchange for Teddy Bridgewater. And then the Eagles drafted Teron Jackson, defensive end out of Coastal Carolina. So Milton Williams, Teron Jackson, or Aleem McNeil. What would you take, Wilson?
Well, it's funny because I was actually looking up the draft grades I had for both these guys for the big board. Milton Williams I had as a like a 3rd round pick, 25th overall is where I graded him, and then I had Aleem as 327. So they're right next to each other. So they went. I had them 2 spots different, and they went 1 spot apart. So,
I mean, I understand Donahue being miffed. If you trade back 3 spots for a 6th round pick, and you've got a guy in there who's slamming the table saying take McNeil. And, Rose was like, well, he probably won't be gone. If he is, we'll just take Milton Williams. As Wilson points out, they're graded equal, pretty close. Before we latch too long onto the Philadelphia Eagles, we will have to get, of course, Devo's thoughts on this draft. Devo, I look at this draft and it screams Howie trying to make fans happy with those first 2 picks.
Yeah, I could see that definitely with the first pick, but like I told you on Friday night, I think there was a portion of the fan base that wasn't thrilled with the Landon Dickerson pick because of his injury issues. Now, we know it could be an incredible player and a first-round talent if he is healthy, but I think Eagles fans, at least from what I saw, were about split in terms of if they approved that pick or not, or if they could have just gotten someone else a little bit more ready to play. Like, we don't have to worry too much about this year, but maybe in the future when Jason Kelce retires, like Landon Dickerson can be that replacement. So I'm all in favor of the pick. You cannot be mad at the Devontae Smith pick, especially considering that they were proactive and moved up and surpassed the Giants, who were definitely going to take them. Maybe I look back in the future and wish they had taken Justin Fields. That's how I feel right at this moment. But I think they're putting Jalen Hurts in a good position to succeed with the pick of Devontae Smith. I just don't know if Hurts should be the guy that they're trying to hype all this up with when they could have had a real franchise quarterback in Justin Fields at number 10.
I think if I'm the Eagles, I don't even really consider Philadelphia in the group of teams that could feel like idiots for passing on Fields. It's sort of like, I think
we'll see, right? I mean, in the moment, I'm fine with Devontae Smith too, but if Justin Fields turns out to be,
yeah, I guess I'm saying that I look at them sort of like we look at the Bengals with Pat Mahomes, where we joke about it with Breech, but they probably weren't. I didn't really think that the Eagles were taking Fields. Did you? When they traded up, I was like, oh, maybe that's Fields. I was like, no, that's Devontae Smith. They just leapfrogged Gettleman.
Do you think that the Giants should have taken Patrick Mahomes, or was it smart that they passed on
him? The Giants did pass on Patrick Mahomes for
that was a shout out to our NFL editor Kevin Steinwell, who got old takes exposed for saying that he was.
That's a great point. I forgot about that. Yeah, the Giants probably should have taken Patrick Mahomes. Yes, everybody should have taken Patrick Mahomes. The Bears,
right? That's the
49ers. At any rate, yes. If Fields turns out to be a generational, top 10 quarterback in the NFL or top 5 quarterback in the NFL, then the teams that didn't take him will look extremely stupid and Ryan Pace will look extremely smart. But if I'm Philly and I trade Carson Wentz and I've drafted used a 2nd round pick with Jalen Hurts and he has played well at times in the NFL, even though I think probably a little overhyped mainly because of his fantasy scoring, I'm sort of with Jeff Lurie on this. I want to see what he does in 2021. And to do that, you need to get him some help. So why not surround him with some of his old teammates? Exactly. Thank you. Let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas, everyone expected, this is how it always works, right? They're mocked, like 97% of mock drafts gave them a cornerback in the 1st round at number 10 overall. The cornerbacks, the 2 top cornerbacks, J.C. Horn goes 8, and then Patrick Surtain goes 9, as I predicted in my final mock draft, just flipped. And then the Cowboys trade with the Eagles, move back to 12, and draft Micah Parsons, who they wanted all along. They pick up Kelvin Joseph late in the 2nd round and some other edge picks in the 3rd round. What did you think about their draft, Wilson?
They ranked 30th in my draft rankings. And again, to be clear, I don't hate what they did. It's just that it didn't mesh up with what I had them doing in terms of where I thought they would go. What's going on here? Sorry, I was looking at this thing. Let me pull up the thing. So what I have. Okay, so Micah Parsons I loved. Kelvin Joseph I loved. I get all that. I think those are fantastic picks, and they help the defense right away. Chauncey Golston I thought was drafted a little too high, the edge rusher. And the one that threw everything for a loop. and this is the biggest disparity of any pick in this entire draft, was the 3rd round pick, 35th over in 3rd round, Nashawn Wright, the cornerback out of Oregon State. I had him as a priority free agent, and clearly he went to the bottom of round 3. And that was 100% a Dan Quinn pick because he fits like the long, rangy, not 4-4 guy cornerback that Dan Quinn likes. So that to me was the most glaring difference. And the other difference was late in round 4, they took Josh Ball, the tackle out of Marshall, transfer from Florida State, who I had is going in the 7th round. And the only reason I had him going in the 7th round is because he had some off-field issues, domestic violence stuff, I think, back in early in his career. He could be a really good football player, but you're just taking a risk there in that regard. So those are the big things for me. I love the Simi Fehoko pick down in the late 5th. I had him as an early 6th. And I like their top 3 picks a lot too. So I think they did a lot of things to make the football team better. It was just those 2 picks that I had questions about, especially a 3rd rounder on a cornerback that Dan Quinn likes. But the funny thing is no one in the media was talking about. And that doesn't mean it's a bad pick. It just means that the media doesn't always know what the NFL is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, like with draft grades, that whole debate's been going on for 2 or 3 days. It's like, for the media doesn't know. No, but neither do NFL teams. That's why draft bust exists.
Right.
But I do think specifically the Nashawn Wright pick is interesting because when you have someone like Dan Quinn who's saying, all right, this guy's a good fit for my system. This might not be, he might be there in the 4th or 5th round. So yes, we're reaching, but I don't want to risk losing him because he's such a perfect fit. And so sometimes you'll have a defensive coordinator or an assistant coach feel that way. And that's why you'll see a team reach. So that is absolutely one of those that, maybe it ends up panning out for the Cowboys because Quinn's right and this guy was a perfect fit. Or maybe Wilson's going to look smart in 5 years and the Cowboys are going to look like idiots and they way overreached here. But you know what? Look, the Cowboys, what were they terrible at last year? They're terrible at playing defense. The defense was horrible. Everything about the defense was bad. So what they go out and took defensive players with their first 6 picks. At least they're doing the right thing. They're on the right path. What?
Activate the Breech bot. Here we go.
Well, I like the draft more than Wilson did.
Activated.
Well, Brinson, I don't remember, on Thursday when we were rating the winners and losers from the first round, Brinson had the Cowboys as a loser, even though they traded down, picked up extra picks, and took Micah Parsons. And I have never seen someone get more hate on Instagram than Brinson did when we put this
look.
Don't look.
Hey, Breech, check TikTok because I want to see Brinson get destroyed on TikTok. That's that's the only thing I have on my mid-year resolution.
My issue with the Parsons thing is that the Cowboys just lost Sean Lee to retirement, and they're not going to pick up the 5th-year option with Leighton Vander Esch. So they're like, we needed another linebacker. It's really worked out well. So
they do need a linebacker too. They also got Jabril Cox, who is awesome. So they got 2 linebackers. Jabril Cox is not as big as Micah Parsons. He can play a more versatile role. I actually like what they did, but just those 2 picks that I mentioned, the disparity is what dinged them in my wins over Wilson draft grade.
I don't hate the draft necessarily. I'm not going to praise the Panthers last year for taking all defensive players and blast the Cowboys for it. And they need to be better on defense. It's just how many of these guys are going to have to be impact guys in year 1.
Well, the first 2 definitely.
I think
they have a chance to do that.
But look, if these guys are impact guys and the Cowboys have a ton of upside to them, this is still a very stars and scrubsy team. I kind of wanted to see him beef up the offensive line because
no, like the whole thing we've been talking about the last month of the season is how well football team and the Giants have done in terms of making their rosters better in free agency. And I said this, and I think at least one point, you guys both agree with me that Dak Prescott can't score 40 points a game, and they're not the favorite in that division. So you have to fix the defense. And I think now they're actually helping themselves be more competitive in a division that is truly and utterly terrible.
No, that's true. A lot of investments into the defensive side of the ball for Dallas. We will see how it pans out, and maybe it doesn't matter if it's great in the first year. Maybe it doesn't matter if it's great in the first year if it does work out over the long haul. The Washington football team got a B+ from Pete Prisco for their draft, and probably bolstered by the fact that they take Jamin Davis 19th overall. He wasn't the first linebacker, unfortunately for me, because that would have been very nice. But Pete Prisco believes he will, quote, be a special player on a talented front seven. He flies all around, makes big plays, linebacker to Kentucky. They had Samuel Cosme, an offensive lineman in the second round, and then picked up some offensive help later on with De'Ami Brown in the third round. They also had Benjamin St. Juste, the quarterback out of Minnesota, and John Bates, tight end out of Boise. Thoughts on what the Washington football team did, Wilson?
They came in 20th on the wins over Wilson NFL draft rankings, and I'll tell you what. I love the Jamin Davis pick, love Sam Cosme pick. I actually like the St. Juste pick. I had him going a little lower, like early fourth round. The issues came with John Bates, the tight end, in the fourth round. I had him as a sixth round pick. But again, he could work out. That's fine. That's just a difference of opinion. It's not that I hate it. And the Cameron Cheeseman pick, I did have some issue with because he's a long snapper that they took late in the sixth round. But, you know, if you're going to take a special teams player, it has to be a kicker, and he has to go to the Bengals. But those were the Bates pick and the Cheeseman pick were what dinged them most. And at the end of the day, just so you, in case anyone cares, I weighted the day one and day two heavier than day three. So it's not like I gave a lot of weight to the idea of a long snapper going with the 41st pick in the sixth round. But they again, checking boxes. I suppose you could argue they could have gotten a quarterback or should have tried to get a quarterback, because we saw certainly that the Bears did that. But this team, this defense is going to be better. The offensive line is better, and you have Ryan Fitzpatrick for a year. I have no issue with this.
Okay. Cool.
I will say, on the subject of drafting long snappers, Wilson, I actually agree. Washington probably should have waited the seventh round if they were going to take one at all. If there's one position that does not get drafted ever, it is long snapper. We saw two of them taken here. It would have been more fitting if Mr. Cheeseman had ended up in Green Bay, but he did not. And you know what? As weird as it sounds, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him. You never hear about, because like you don't think of somebody getting drafted in the sixth round and pretty much being a lock for a starting job, but that's kind of what you have with Cheeseman, because which sounds so ridiculous to say every time, because
I know that Breech changed his last name, or either first or last name, to Cheeseman.
I might. Cheeseman Breech or John Cheeseman. I like Cheeseman. But so Washington, their long snapper was Nick Sundberg for a long time. He'd been there since 2010. So we're talking over 10 years with that organization. All of a sudden, Washington decided, all right, you know what? We don't need you anymore. So you draft a guy. And so literally Cheeseman's going to have pressure. You go in there and you have a bad snap on your first extra point, your first field goal. Then Washington, you look like idiots for letting Sundberg go, for drafting a guy named Cheeseman. So it was definitely an interesting pick, but like Ryan, I did like the top of their draft.
Yeah, and Washington's a little bit different from Dallas too, because when you look at Washington, there are not as many spots that they needed to fill in terms of the starting spots on either side. I will say that I thought they could have addressed the wide receiver position a little bit earlier, but I guess De'Ami Brown in the third fits kind of well with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. They're just thin there. If something happens with McLaurin, man, that they have promise.
He liked De'Ami Brown better than I did. He's a deep threat, and
he's a burner, man.
So that's great. And Dax Milne, actually, he feels like a more athletic version of Hunter Renfrow. I don't think we talked about him. I think we talked about him earlier, but and
look, it's possible that Antonio Gandy Golden takes a step forward next year, and it doesn't matter as much.
You didn't bring up Kelvin Harmon's name. You're done talking about him.
I mean, what are we going to stump for Kelvin Harmon? See, he's listed on our lads as the starter. Okay.
All right. That's good.
The New York Giants, the G-Men, got a B+ from Pete Prisco for their grade, their draft, which was supposed to start at 11, but when they got leapfrogged by the Philadelphia Eagles for Devontae Smith, who they were clearly taking, Dave Gettleman decided to flip everybody on their heads and traded down in the draft for the first time in his history as a GM, either with New York or with Carolina. And he did it in a big way, moving down all the way to number 20, swapping picks with the Chicago Bears and getting a 2022 Chicago's 2022 first round pick, a very valuable asset, and took, so the Bears could come up and take Justin Fields. The Giants go down and take Kadarius Toney with the 20th overall pick. They then scoop up. He traded down 3 straight times. It's just classic Gettleman. Like, oh, you told me I don't do this? Watch, I do it all the time. Look at me. Takes Azeez Ojulari in the second round, Aaron Robinson, cornerback, in the third round, and then picked up a couple more defensive players, just 3 more players in the draft, only a 6-player draft. Ellerson Smith, the edge out of Northern Iowa, in the 4th. Gary Brightwell, running back from Arizona, in the 6th, and Rodarius Williams, a cornerback from Oklahoma State, in the 6th. I believe that their trades up for, do they trade up or back for Robinson and Ojulari?
I don't know. That's your job. Rodarius Williams is Greedy's brother, older brother too, I believe. I like that pick at the very end. He went a round lower than I thought. Kadarius Toney, I think, is a home run. It just has to, we talked about it at the time. You were sort of passing on Devonta Smith for Kadarius Toney in the first round pick, and that feels like the right move. Azeez Ojulari, they got around earlier than I thought. There were some concerns about his injury, and Aaron Robinson went exactly where I thought he would go at the top of the 3rd round. He's a physical, pretty big, fast slot guy, and I think he's going to have the chance to be really good. Ellison Smith, I didn't like him going that high, but he opted out last year and played small school, so he could be certainly much better than the last time I saw him play.
Yeah, all right. Let's see. So for that 3rd round pick, they moved up. I'm not sure about the 2nd. Sorry, Breech, go ahead.
The 2nd didn't happen during the draft, did it? I think the only one that happened the night of the draft was, or besides the 1st round pick, obviously, that 3rd round pick, they had the 76, they moved up to 71 and trade with the Broncos. And that is where they grabbed Aaron Robinson. You move up 5 spots, you got to like someone. You know what, though? They needed cornerback help. They got it. I think that's big. And I like this. And I think the biggest reason I like this is because, like you said, Brinson, Gettleman made that shocking trade. No one thought Dave Gettleman was going to trade back. And not only did he do it, he got them a 1st round pick in next year when the draft should be better because you don't have guys who took a year off. Your scouts are going to be back on the road watching people. So I do think I agree with kind of the logic that a 1st round pick in 2022 is more valuable than a 1st round pick in 2021. So I thought the Giants did a fantastic job of filling their needs and then plus picking up that 1st round pick for next year.
I concur completely. Debo, would you rather have Devontae Smith or Kadarius Toney in a 1st round pick?
Devontae.
Okay.
Ooh.
Now you're kind of a loyal to whatever the Eagles did guy. You sure?
Yeah, that is true. I'm thinking back in my mind to preferring Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson last year, so I was wrong on that. I think there was a certain point where I stopped giving Howie Roseman the benefit of the doubt, and I was ready to just hate whatever pick he made. But it's hard to hate on what they did this year. And they're loaded up on 1st round picks. They have, I think, the 2nd most draft capital for the 2022 draft after the moves that they've made this offseason.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move to the NFC North, and we will start with the Minnesota Vikings, who got an A grade from Pete Prisco. He loved what Minnesota did, probably because they just sat back there, or they traded back, actually, and picked up Christian Darrisaw, one of Pete's favorite tackles in the draft. This trade came about. This is originally Seattle's 1st round pick, and the Jets came up to get Elijah Vera Tucker and gave Minnesota picks to move back down to 23, and they still managed to get an offensive lineman and got paid handsomely for it. So hard to blame Minnesota for that move. Kellen Mond was their next pick, who they took 66 overall in the 3rd round, resulted in RG3 blasting Kirk Cousins on some Bleacher Report stream, I believe. Then they took one of the – yeah, you didn't hear that? They said, oh, he's in trouble now.
Oh.
RG3?
Actually, RG3 did a good job analyzing it, but he
said, here's his quote. He said,
happened to be Kirk Cousins he was talking about.
He said, Kellen Mond represents exactly what Kirk doesn't do well. Kellen is the big physical quarterback. He can run it, throw it all over the field. And I don't think that's something that number 8 is able to do in Minnesota. End quote.
I don't know, it sounds a little bit like sour grapes. He's not wrong, but it sounds like sour grapes.
So
sour grapes can be good, Ryan.
For moving from 14 to 23, the Vikings sent 143rd overall, 4th round. It also got back 66th and 86th overall, which ended up being 2. So they ended up with 3 picks in the 3rd round. Oh my God, did they give away their 2nd round pick for freaking Yannick Ngakoue? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
That is rough. At least they sold him off and it was sort of a rental, but they come away with Kellen Mond, Chaz Surratt, former quarterback for Carolina, and also former ACC Defensive Player of the Year as a linebacker, which you don't see very often. And they grabbed Wyatt Davis, the offensive lineman from Ohio State, in the 3rd.
3rd round pick, sorry. Third round pick for Ngakoue. I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, it was a third. Okay. What did that?
Oh, hold on. Trading the Vikings for 2021 second round pick. Nope, never mind.
they got a third back from him, for him from Baltimore, I think, and gave it, but got him for a second in what they paid for Jacksonville. They also got Patrick Jones, the edge out of Pittsburgh, and then they had a ton of picks here.
Yep, I had them as they ranked 15th in my rankings. And let's see why. Darrisaw pick I love. Kellen Mond actually had him going second overall in the third round. That's exactly where he went.
Wow.
Surratt had him going third round 15th. He went third round 14th. So I'm getting hot here. I like this draft. Wyatt Davis went almost a full round before I thought he would go. Jones went right where I thought. It came with things went in a different direction with the running back out of Iowa State in the fourth round. I had him as a seventh round pick, but again, that doesn't mean anything. Just differences of opinion. And then the last one I'll mention is Amir Smith-Marset, the wide receiver at Iowa, who didn't blow me away, but he played in sort of a weird offense and he wasn't given a lot of opportunities. And so I had him as a seventh round pick. He went in the fifth round. And again, you just don't know. Sometimes you're in a crappy offense. It doesn't work out in college and the light comes on in the pros. And that could be certainly the case with Smith-Marset playing with RG3's favorite quarterback, Kirk Cousins, or RG3's real favorite quarterback in Kellen Mond.
I'm like getting frightened because I'm agreeing with all Prisco's grades here. I thought the Vikings had one of the best drafts. Prisco gave him A. We were talking about our teaser yesterday. It was only 3 teams received an A. 2 of them were in the AFC. One of them, the Vikings, was the only team in the NFC that got an A from Prisco. And you just look at the holes on their roster. You know, like they need to protect the quarterback. They came out and got Christian Darrisaw. Some people thought he could have been a top 15 pick. The Kellen Mond, I like that because you put pressure on Kirk Cousins without putting too much pressure on the coaching staff. So, you know, if you draft someone 11th overall or top 15, as a coaching staff, you feel pressure to get that guy in the field. He needs to be our starting quarterback. We took him in the first round because we want him to contribute right away. You take a guy in the third round, it's all right. Kellen Mond is going to be on the bench in 2021 unless he just completely outplays Kirk Cousins during training camp somehow. If that happens, it's a win-win. So if he outplays Cousins, you play him. And if he doesn't, you have him on the bench and no one's going to bat an eye because he was a third-round pick. So I liked almost everything the Vikings did.
Yeah, it's hard to complain. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, this division is fascinating because if Aaron Rodgers does get traded, and we'll get to the Packers in a second, I mean, Minnesota, if they can get – their offense was fine last year. Like, their offense wasn't the problem. Their defense was a disaster. If Mike Zimmer can fix that defense –
and the good news is they had a bunch of young guys last year that struggled, and they'll be going into year 2, and they'll have Michael Pierce coming back who opted out.
Yeah, and Darrisaw – you know, you start to put together this just elite level offensive line for Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook with, you know, Darrisaw, Bradbury, and others on there. You could really end up with a productive offense again. So maybe the Vikings are sort of a sleeper here. The Detroit Lions. Wow, everybody got good grades in this draft. The Detroit Lions got a B+ from Pete Prisco, mainly because they sat back and let Penei Sewell fall to them. You saw their war room, man. Old Holmes there, he was wigging out about getting Penei Sewell at 7. Some people think he's generational. Others have question marks about him. They also got Levi I can't do it. Onwuzurike, the defensive lineman out of Washington, in the second round, a nice little pickup. And then, as we mentioned, Aleem McNeil. They went trenches. And look, this is a Dan Campbell draft if there ever was one, right?
Yeah, I mean, guys who eat kneecaps for lunch. The only pick, I'm looking real quick, the only pick that went earlier than I thought, and that was only a handful of picks before, was Aleem McNeil. I had him going 327, he went 308. Every other pick was underdrafted, if you will. So Melifonwu, the cornerback out of Syracuse, I had him as a second round. He went late in the third round. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver, Equanimeous' brother, out of USC, he went there. He went ahead of where I thought he might go. And the last pick, Jamar Jefferson, the running back out of Oregon State, really good player who felt like a 6th round pick to me, but went almost at the very end of the draft, 7 to 29 pick overall. So yeah, I it's hard to argue with checking boxes and getting more value than what I had them potentially getting. So well done, Brad Holmes. Well done, Dan Campbell. Well done, kneecaps.
I just like that the Lions drafted a bunch of people that definitely went to the Dan Campbell school of absolutely craziness. I mean, you have their second round pick coming out and saying, I like to F people up during his Zoom meeting with the media.
The whole thing.
Except he didn't say effing. He used the actual F word. I like effing people up. I like to get off the line and just put my helmet or my hands on an offensive lineman and F up an offensive scheme. I like pushing them back 2 to 3 yards and just making them feel like poop, except he didn't use the word poop. I mean, It was bonkers hearing this guy. And as soon as you heard him talk, if I would have heard that quote 3 days before the draft and someone asked me, who's going to draft that guy? I would say the Lions. That is a Dan Campbell guy. That dude is going to be like the #1 overall pick because the Lions are going to love him so much. So, yeah, it seems like the Lions did. I really like their first 2 picks is what it comes down to.
You can see that C+ by Aleem McNeil all you want. Aleem McNeil is going to be a star player. He will make Pro Bowls in the NFL. I promise you that. He had a pick-6 last year. The dude is a freak.
And the Lions stole him from the Eagles.
I promise you, Aleem McNeil will make a Pro Bowl before his career is over.
How much are you promising?
I mean,
you make a lot of promises.
Will you get a tattoo of Aleem McNeil?
A life-size Aleem McNeil tattoo
on your lower back?
No, we're done with tattoo bets, guys. We got to find something new.
I'm working on the Ryan Finley one. It's coming.
Yeah, Gare asked me about it again yesterday on HQ. So that's her driving focus right now. So that tattoo.
I gotta say, I like that the Bears didn't. I mean, that the Lions did not think about or go quarterback. And I don't, Justin Fields is one. I don't know that I put the Lions in.
You like it for now. We'll see. Again,
this team is not ready. If they get Justin Fields isn't good on this team.
That's fair.
And they have Jared Goff locked in for 2 years.
I would say that Trevor Lawrence isn't good on this team either. I don't think there's a quarterback alive that's going to be good on this team.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't win 10 games on this team, right?
No. We could find out.
The Bears, I don't think that we will get that far. The Chicago Bears, we're not going to ding them too much, I don't suppose, for trading away next year's first-round pick because they went up and got Justin Fields. They're the team that came away with them in 11th overall. As Pete Briscoe wrote, they gave up a lot, but they ended up with the second-best quarterback in the draft. It's a bold move, but necessary. For the record, that is a higher grade than he gave the Chiefs for trading up to take Patrick Mahomes, which he gave a B. That's worth noting. They come in and trade for Tevin Jenkins in the second round to get an A+ from Chris Trapasso and then get Larry. And then they have another pick until the 5th round. So, you can point out that they had a bunch of 5th and 6th round picks. Daz Newsome, a nice pick there late in the 6th round. Khalil Herbert, sort of a sleeper coming out of the ACC as well. I like this draft. And quite frankly, Wilson, it looks nothing like a Ryan Pace draft.
They ranked 5th on wins over Wilson draft rankings, just behind the Lions. So 15th for the Vikings, 4th for the Lions, 5th for the Bears. We'll see what the old Packers do here in a second. But yeah, Justin Fields home run, Tevin Jenkins home run, Larry Borum, the offensive tackle out of Missouri. I had him going in the 7th round, so two rounds too high in my book. But we'll see. He could be a great player. But every other player down the list was underdrafted, and that I thought they would go earlier than they actually went off the board to the Bears. And you mentioned Daz Newsome. I love that pick. I love the Thomas Graham pick, the cornerback out of Oregon. I thought he should have been one of the first Oregon defensive backs off the board. I think he ended up being the last. But exactly. It looks like a Ryan Pace draft in that he traded for a quarterback, but I think this time he traded for the right quarterback. And this could be one of those things where Justin Fields saves Ryan Pace's job for the next 10 years because Mr. Trubisky almost got him fired.
I'll just say about this draft that I wish it would have been in Vegas, not Cleveland. I thought because the Bears took a gamble. This was the biggest gamble of like Justin Fields is a good quarterback. Brinson, I think you said Briscoe had Fields as the #2 overall quarterback in the draft. Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, basically they are gambling their entire future on these top 2 picks. It's not just Justin Fields here. It's Tevin Jenkins, 2nd overall, in the 2nd round with the 39th overall pick. When you're the Bears and you cut your starting left tackle, Charles Leno, who just got cut on Monday, and you're saying, all right, we're just going to give the job to this rookie and we're going to boot this guy who has started 80 straight games for us. Charles Leno had been the Bears left tackle for 80 straight games dating back to 2016. I mean, that is a gigantic gamble because even if Fields is good, all of a sudden, if Tevin Jenkins is a turnstile and defensive linemen are just getting back there and putting pressure on Fields on every play, he's not going to be able to succeed even if he is good because he's still going to be learning on the go. So I thought the bigger gamble here was just basically giving Tevin Jenkins the left tackle job when you might have a rookie starting quarterback on the field.
Only John Breech would ding the Bears for drafting somebody who's going to play in front of Andy Dalton.
So look,
it's the same thing with Andy Dalton. I'm saying it's a risk. It's a giant risk. The gamble might pay off. The gamble might pay off hugely, Brinson.
Yeah, I mean, Tevin Jenkins was a great pick there at 39, but they gave up a 3rd-round pick. It ended up being Tommy Tremble out of the tight end out of Notre Dame that the Panthers took at 83rd overall, and the Panthers also got Brady Christensen at later on in the 2nd round. So you have to wonder, would you prefer to have Tevin Jenkins? Is Tevin Jenkins that much better than Brady Christensen, Wilson?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
But also, if you're the Bears, wouldn't you maybe wait to training camp or a preseason game to see Tevin Jenkins on the field before you let your starting left tackle go?
Yeah, I would.
Breech, you're a blogger. Ryan Pace is a general manager who already drafted Mr. Trubisky and Justin Fields. So who do you think knows more?
All right, let's go to the Packers. And of course, it's impossible to talk about the 2021 NFL draft without mentioning the fact that Aaron Rodgers, before the draft, he's done. He's out. He wants out of Green Bay. Adam Schefter reported the news. Jay Glazer confirmed it as well. And even with that news fluttering and pummeling Packers Nation, the Packers didn't take a wide receiver in the 1st round. They took Eric Stokes, the cornerback out of Georgia. My bankroll appreciates it. Thank you for the under on that. And then they took Josh Myers, offensive lineman, in the 2nd round. And then in the 3rd round, as if to try and send a signal to Aaron Rodgers, they drafted Amari Rodgers, the wide receiver out of Clemson. Finally, they got him a skill guy. Do you like the Packers draft, Ryan?
I had him ranked 25th. So that's dead last among the AFC, the NFC North teams. And I feel like last year they were dead last because of the Jordan Love running back tight end day 1, day 2 draft, which had a lot of people frustrated. So Eric Stokes, I didn't like him as much as most people. I had him as a 3rd round guy, so that dinged him a little bit. But a lot of people liked him, including Pete Prisco. Josh Myers, I did like. That's a good pick there. Amari Rodgers, I love that pick. As I said before, he's T. Martin's son on HQ. I actually called him T. Higgins' son, which would be awesome that his former teammate was his son. Pete Prisco was kind enough to interrupt me and make sure that that didn't go out as truth. And then the rest of the picks until you get to round 6 and 7, the last 2 picks I had as being overdrafted. And now Royce Newman is a tackle at Ole Miss. He'll play guard in Green Bay. So that's why he was drafted earlier. And you have to account for that, which I didn't, obviously. But the draft is fine. They needed help in the secondary. Kevin King was obviously a liability last year. They need help in center because Corey Lindsey's gone. They need a new Randall Cobb, and that's exactly what Amari Rodgers is. But the issue is the quarterback. And if Aaron Rodgers ain't there, by the way, I'm going to put it at 7% that Aaron Rodgers plays week 1 in Green Bay.
Whew, that is low.
And I think that what if Jordan Love isn't terrible? Because I was a huge Jordan Love guy. So that'll be my trial run for Mac Jones. I'm going to have to get up the Jordan Love bandwagon and will that into existence too.
I don't know. I don't.
His team isn't terrible. Right?
The Packers?
Right.
Wouldn't it be funny if Ryan just put it 7% that Rodgers opens the season in Green Bay? Wouldn't it be funny if Rodgers actually plays for Washington and their first game is at Green Bay, and that's why he's on the field in week 1? Like you said everything you said about the draft. I'm going to focus on the Amari Rodgers pick because I thought that was it is like Gutekunst and Rodgers are just going back and forth, just with these haymakers, seeing who can. Imagine if Brinson was in a holdout right now. Wilson's hosting the show, and then we bring on an analyst named Bill Brinson instead of Will Brinson. Like, you're going to take that as a slight, even if it's not meant as one. Even if that was the most qualified person, like, oh, you got a Rodgers. Oh, we have the same first initial. Like, this thing is just, it feels so messed up. I'm not even going to give it a 7% chance. I'm going to give it a 0.7% chance that Aaron Rodgers is playing for the Packers in week 1.
Not even 7. Wow.
Wait, what percentage chance you give it?
Not even 7, he said.
0.7.
Wow.
I mean, is he retired or is he?
He could. I think that Deshaun, as we said, Deshaun Watson, his 25-year-old, is not retiring. He'll just maybe have to sit out and then make it before all the things happen off the field allegedly. Then he would have to make a decision. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is so spiteful and vengeful. He will be like, peace out. I've been doing this since 2005. I got a Super Bowl. I got a ton of money. I'm moving with my wife to LA.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you this. What if the Texans called up the Packers and said, look, we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. It's going to be your problem, but we'll trade you straight up Rodgers for Watson.
I wouldn't do it for the Packers.
Rodgers has to have a no trade clause, I'm sure, right?
Maybe.
Well, who knows? But I mean, I wouldn't do it. We have Jordan Love.
I mean, but if you had a chance to get Deshaun Watson, you wouldn't take it?
In a perfect world, but clearly things are not going perfectly for Deshaun Watson right now.
He does not have a no trade clause. That is a problem.
That makes it even more hilarious.
Hey, you send him to Siberia then. Like,
no, that's
in Houston, bro. We just
no, he retires.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is if you send him somewhere crappy, he retires. The other problem for Rodgers too, I think, is that, and this is a problem for the Packers, to be perfectly frank, is they needed this to come out 3 weeks ago, so they had time to formulate a possible draft trade, right? Where you trade, you tell the 49ers, hey, don't take a quarterback. We're going to trade you Aaron Rodgers for Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Pitts. And they take Kyle Pitts at 3 or give us.
But Rodgers knew it needed to come out 3 weeks ago. And he's like, how can I screw them over the most? Just like they did to me last year. I leak it on draft day when they don't have time to change up their plans.
And, we talked about it on some show, I believe. But when you see Adam Schefter, this doesn't happen in the NFL, right? Most of the time, this news is delivered to multiple reporters. And Adam Schefter goes on, he's on the NFL draft pre-draft show on ESPN. And he says, without knowledge of any of his coworkers who were all surprised by his statement, he said, coming up after the break, I'm going to drop some news. And they go to the break. And during the break, Amina Kimes and Dan Orlovsky and Laura Rutledge, who were on the set, Marcus Spears, I believe, all tweeted, you might want to turn on ESPN because Schefter is about to drop a bomb. Ratings go up. People talked about Aaron Rodgers, and Schefter dropped the news. And it is a bomb, and it's going to change the landscape of the NFL if he's ultimately traded. That's why Super Bowl odds are off the board. Denver closed it like 25-1. The Broncos did, because that's the landing spot. That's
not changing the landscape of the NFL, though. I think it's overstated. I think it's just he's angry, he's old, and he's been mistreated.
I mean, I disagree, Ryan, because whatever division he gets changed to, that division's upside down. If he's in the AFC, that changes the AFC. Like,
the Packers, we're minus 250 to win the division, and they're barely going to be favored. You think they're going to win with Jordan Love?
No, here's the thing. They were favored by that much in part because Stafford's gone and they replaced it with Jared Goff. I mean, there's no chance that, they had a 1% chance with Stafford. Now it's negative 5,000 with Jared Goff.
If Aaron Rodgers is traded this offseason, it changes the landscape of the NFL.
Does Matthew Stafford going to the Rams change the landscape of the NFL? I know they're not in the same par, but he's 75% of Aaron Rodgers.
I would say no, because the Rams were already a playoff team without Stafford. So that they're going to stick par for the course, still be a playoff team. With the Packers, you're talking about a team that went to 2 straight NFC title games, probably is not going to make the playoffs without Aaron Rodgers. And then wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, he can go to a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, and all of a sudden they're a playoff team. So you're affecting multiple things with multiple dominoes, whereas Matthew Stafford went to a non-playoff team that's still going to be a non-playoff team, or he came from a non-playoff team, and he's going to go to a playoff team that's still going to be a playoff team. So nothing changes.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
You love avocados.
Because I need Jordan Love to come through for me.
Devil's avocado, Larry. All right, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers plenty this offseason. Let's take a break, and when we come back, the final 2 divisions in the NFC. So the Atlanta Falcons will be the first team we'll discuss in the NFC South. Atlanta kick-started their draft by taking Kyle Pitts at number 4 overall. Everyone knew they were going to do it. They got a B- from Pete Prisco. There's no question. They were taking Kyle Pitts unless they got to trade out. No one was going to be willing to trade up there. So they stood pat and took Pitts, and that's a great job. He's a can't-miss prospect, as Pete Prisco writes. Richie Grant, the 2nd round. Jalen Mayfield in the 3rd. Darren Hall in the 4th. And then they picked up kind of a surprising number of late-round picks, because this is a team that doesn't have might not even have enough money to sign all the draft picks, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? So, all right, where to have these guys graded? I'm trying to send out these tweets here as I talk to you guys about my wins over Wilson. So the Falcons, baby. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Come on. Oh, I didn't have grades for them. That's not true. Oh, there they are.
They're dead last, aren't they?
No, they're not. They're 19th. There we go. Got so much going on. Wins over Wilson's tough work, Breech. So let's see what we got here with the old Falcons. Kyle Pitts, easy. Richie Grant, I actually love that pick a lot. I mean, he helps the defense. And that's primarily, I mean, that was at the top of the do list. If you're not taking Kyle Pitts, you feel like you have to trade down. If you're not taking the quarterback and just load up on defense, they were able to do both. Jalen Mayfield feels a need. It'll be interesting to see if he plays tackle or probably kick inside the guard. And let's see. Drew Dahlman, the center out of Stanford, I didn't love it in the 4th round. I had him more as a 6th-round pick. But I did like Agunajay, the edge rusher out of Notre Dame, who went in the 5th round. I had him going as a 4th rounder, so that was a good pick there. And then Frank Darby, the very last pick they had, the latest wide receiver out of Arizona State after N'Keal Harry, and then last year Brandon Ayuk. He wasn't as explosive as I was hoping. I had him going at the end of the 5th. They got him at the top of the 6th, so not much difference, but a little bargain there. And he has a chance to be on that offense with Kyle Pitts and Julio and Calvin Ridley, and have chances for success without having to be the number 2 or even the number 3 guy.
Yeah, I mean, I love that they took Kyle Pitts because this is Arthur Smith saying, look, Matt Ryan hasn't really been in decline. We just need to put a better team around him. And now you look at all these weapons that the Falcons have, and even if they trade Julio Jones, that's still going to be a tough offense to stop. But that doesn't mean their defense is magically going to get better. Their offensive line could still struggle. So this is still a team that has plenty of holes. But I do like the statement they made by taking Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, just lean into your strengths. That defense is going to be a problem. It just is. Dean Pease is coming to town, so maybe he's able to scheme up a little bit more pressure than we saw from Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris. I think there's a possibility of that happening. But if this team is going to be good, it needs to be because Matt Ryan is putting up MVP caliber numbers. And I would also say that if you look at the odds, while Debo brings up the next team, I'll look up the odds for Matt Ryan. I don't think it's a bad play to take a stab at Matt Ryan MVP.
Wow.
I just feel like he could put up some.
I'm waiting to see if Julio's on the roster before I'm making that bet.
Okay. Why wouldn't he be? They're not trading him.
I mean, it'd have to be a post June 1st trade, so now would be the time for it to happen.
All right, Matt Ryan is 30-1. He is behind William Hill, behind Deshaun Watson at 25-1. Herbert, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, Russ, Lamar, Josh Allen, Rodgers, and Mahomes. And basically, he has his same number as Derrick Henry. I'd like it at 50-1. 30-1 is a little rich for me. So There you go. Saints got a C from Pete Prisco, who did not love their draft. They took Peyton Turner to get to beef up their edge presence at 28th overall. Then Pete Warner, the linebacker out of Ohio State, Paulson Adebo, the quarterback out of Stanford, and Ian Book in the 4th round. A lot of defense, and then a quarterback who maybe is a hybrid of Drew Brees and Taysom Hill.
Yeah, maybe. They ranked 27th on wins over Wilson. The only pick in this class that was underdrafted in terms of being a value was Paulson Adebo, the cornerback out of Stanford, opted out last year. I had him going in the late 2nd and in the early 3rd. I like that pick a lot. I don't even hate the Peyton Turner pick in the 1st round. I had him going in late 2nd. He was late 1st. There was some buzz on him. He was just played at Houston and hadn't played a lot of top-level competition, but he looked like a guy who could have some success in the NFL. The biggest issue for me was Pete Werner, the linebacker at Ohio State, who inexplicably went the bottom of round 2. Maybe he's going to be great, and I hope he is, but he felt like more of a late 4th round guy, and I like his teammate Baron Browning a lot more. He went later in the draft. And Ian Book is a curious pick when you have other needs, but, if Sean Payton has thoughts that he can make a guy work out as a quarterback, then I'm willing to watch and see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I think the Saints having a rookie quarterback in there could be fun, but again, this is not the year to take a quarterback if you're the Saints. Fill the other holes. You have Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Figure out what's going on there. You don't need to add a 3rd ingredient into this 2-ingredient drink. So
I was going to say a quarterback pie.
Your quarterback pie. So it's meh. That's how I feel about the Saints draft.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of meh. But they've been drafting really well the last few years.
That's true.
Last year they took Cesar Ruiz. The year after they took Eric McCoy, and 2 centers, but they worked out. They had a plan for both guys, so that was curious, but it worked out. Yeah. I mean, they've been ever since 2017. They've been slaying it with the draft. Since how am I forgetting his name? Former freaking
Dude who asked Des Bryant if his mom was a,
Oh yeah, him.
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah, Jeff Ireland joined that front office, and they've really improved their ability to draft players. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not as active in the draft this year as they were last year when they aggressively moved up to draft an offensive lineman. That worked out great for them. They got a C from Pete Prisco for sitting back at 32, taking an edge rusher, and then using their second round pick on Kyle Trask, Florida quarterback. Maybe Tom Brady's the latest in a long line of people who might replace Tom Brady when he retires in the year 2095. Wilson, any thoughts, any standouts here with Tampa's class?
They ranked 29th, wins over Wilson. I'll mention just one pick. I'm fine with the Kyle Trask pick. I love the Joe Tryon pick. The Robert Hainsey pick was a little rich for my blood, but I'll tell you why. He played right tackle at Notre Dame, and he struggled at right tackle. So I had him as like a fifth round pick. He went late third, and that's because he's going to kick inside the guard where teams liked him a lot. I just never saw him play there. So I had no real conception of what that might look like. But if the Buccaneers are happy with it and they want to take him late third, great for him. So that's what affected their draft stock most. And I love the Jalen Darden pick, the wide receiver out of North Texas. I think he had 19 touchdowns last year, 12 the year before, and he is electric. He's a lot of fun. So I think on that offense with all those playmakers, he'll be fun to watch should he get on the field.
I'll just say real quick, I like the Kyle Trask pick. I mean, I don't see why not. Obviously, look, we always joke that Brady's going to play forever. The truth is he's going to be 44 when the season starts. Probably has 2 more seasons max, and that's if this isn't his final season. So it's not going to go on forever. And look at
why do you think this is his final season?
Yeah,
I said 2 more seasons max, and there's an option. I give it a 10% chance this is his final season, but I say I'm 90% sure he's done after 2 more seasons.
Who plays longer, Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers. So anyway, not even hesitate. That is not even hesitating.
Less than a 7% chance that Rodgers plays for the Packers, but
if you look at the Buccaneers roster,
Ryan ain't adding up.
The only backup quarterback on the roster right now is Ryan Griffin. They might re-sign Blaine Gabbert. Not 2 great names. If you can bring in Kyle Trask, he ends up being good. Mentored by Tom Brady, similar skill set. Why not see what he has? So I like that pick.
You called Breech out on that math. He just powered through it. He was
what math? I didn't hear the math.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady math.
The reason I don't mind the Kyle Trask pick is that unlike the Jordan Love pick, the Buccaneers probably went to Tom Brady and said, hey, if Kyle Trask is there at the end of the second round, we think we're going to take him. Hope that's cool. And by the way, of course, we re-signed everybody this offseason. We brought everybody back for the Super Bowl run.
And Brinson, real quick, I actually wrote a story about that on Tuesday that people can check out. That if you look at the Buccaneers, Jason Light, general manager, literally came out and said, yeah, I talked to Tom a few weeks before the draft, said if there's a quarterback there, we might, he doesn't know our draft plans, but I did tell him we might want to take a quarterback. And the twist here is that the Chicago Bears even gave Andy Dalton a heads up that they might take a quarterback. Andy Dalton has never taken a single snap with that team, and the Bears still felt compelled to say, hey, look, we might take a quarterback, which makes it even more insane that the Packers did not give Aaron Rodgers a head.
Well, maybe the Bears decided to tell Andy Dalton after they let my good friend Mike Glennon go to the draft party without telling him they were going to beat even though they were locked into it once they traded up for 2. Maybe that's why the Bears told Andy Dalton. So
either way, it makes the Packers look worse.
Yes. If you just tell Aaron Rodgers, hey, we might take a quarterback if this isn't here. If this is here, you're old. We might.
Yeah, but you know what? That's like when you have to tell your grandpa something and he's going to be yelling and screaming because he's old and ornery. He doesn't want to hear it. Granddad, your dentures didn't come in today, and he just flips out. They're like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Maybe he won't be watching the draft tonight. He's out doing whatever he's doing. And if it blows my face.
It's also like if you tell your wife, hey, I'm going to go out to lunch with a friend, and then she's a picture on Instagram. The friend's actually an attractive woman. You get home. She's like, oh, you left that part out. So just give them the details so that no one's wondering anything.
Oh, was I supposed to tell you that part? Totally slipped my mind.
Fun fact, Kyle Trask. Do you know how he got his name?
I don't see beauty. How did he get his name?
He was named after Kyle Field at Texas A&M.
All right.
Fun
That's
fact.
Interesting. Is his middle name Field?
Kyle Field Trask. His middle name is Yates. The Carolina Panthers got a B+. I don't know what his middle name is. Carolina Panthers got a B+ from Pete Prisco for their draft, which was a little surprising in the sense that they drafted J.C. Horn 8th overall, and not Justin Fields, and not Patrick Surtain, and not Penei Sewell, all of whom were on the board. They went J.C. Horn. If just really depends on your opinion of Surtain and Horn.
Penei wasn't there, Brenton.
Panay went 7th. I'm an idiot. Why did I think he went 11th? I wonder if they would have taken Panay if he'd been there.
They'd have been dumb if they didn't.
We'll never know.
I think they would have taken Panay. Yeah, my bad.
Let's debate that for 30 minutes.
And then in their second round, they traded down. They actually were on the clock when Tevin Jenkins was sitting there for them. They need a left tackle badly. They trade down, pick up Terrence Marshall out of LSU, a first rounder, worthy of a first round pick, were it not for medicals, but Joe Brady maybe knows a little thing or two about LSU. And then got the offensive tackle in the third round with Brady Christensen. They traded down a ton. Also landed my guy, Chuba Hubbard. Hell yeah, I love Chuba Hubbard. And I thought it was a pretty good first draft by Scott Fitterer in Carolina. Wilson
came in 10th on wins over Wilson, so they did a really good job. In fact, the funny thing is I like Chuba Hubbard too a lot. I had him going as a late 5th. He went as a late 4th, so that was the biggest discrepancy. Everything else was pretty close, or they got value for the guys they drafted. The name that sticks out to me the most in terms of the best value was Deontay Brown. His nickname's Cornbread, the guard out of Alabama, went midway through the 6th.
Oh my God, he is enormous, right?
Yeah, huge. He went midway through the 6th. I had him as a late 3rd rounder, but he may have to lose some weight. That may be the part of the issue why he fell. But again, Joe Brady saw him up close and personal when he was at LSU. He played at Alabama, played against some of the best players in the country, and they needed help along the offensive line. So that's a great value pick. And if you hit on it, more power to you.
They drafted a long snapper in the 6th round as well.
They did.
I had a first round grade on him.
That's because Matt Rule knows the value of good long snapping. Good for him.
Also Alabama guy. So maybe Matt Rule is going the Nick Saban route, like the Patriots just drafting only Alabama kids.
Well, I mean, you look at this list, Breech, there sure are a lot of Power 5 and SEC schools. They drafted Horn, Marshall,
Trimble,
Brown, Shi Smith, Fletcher, and Phil Hoskins, all SEC guys.
Tommy Trimble.
And Tommy Trimble, Notre Dame, not SEC, but
Power 5 though.
Yeah, the only guy that wasn't a Power 5 guy was Brady Christensen from BYU. That's sort of an interesting thing to note. That's not a Seattle style thing. I'm just curious if that's a Scott Fitterer way.
And real quick, here's my special teams tidbit. When the Panthers called Fletcher to tell him they were drafted, you're a long snapper. You are not expecting to get drafted. And Rule calls him up, and he literally responded by saying, "Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, are you effing kidding me?
There right now, bro. I will walk there right now." Yeah.
He totally thought he was being pranked. Didn't think he was being drafted.
I would guess he wasn't watching the draft at that point because that's Saturday afternoon. He's probably playing golf, cutting his grass. I mean, a long snapper.
There was only like 35 picks left at that point.
Yeah. Well, good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. Anyway, curious to see how that plays out. The JC Horn pick will certainly be scrutinized in Carolina. But, man, I think, I don't think the Panthers are going to win the division or anything. But with all the defensive players they drafted last year, then you add Horn, you get Marshall and Christensen, and maybe I think Hubbard can be effective this year, working behind as a 3rd down role behind Christian McCaffrey. And then you have Deontay Brown.
By the way, that's a great point. That's a great fit for Hubbard because he is basically the airback version, a lighter version of Christian McCaffrey, that type of player. So I think that's a great fit, and you're not going to overuse him, and it'll take some of the stress off McCaffrey. So I'd like to pick in the 4th round.
If you're listing winners and losers from the draft, if I had done I used to do it, I don't do it anymore. If I did a winners and losers article for this draft, Sam Darnold would be a winner.
I was just thinking about that. I was going to ask you, is that a what'd you call the Aaron Rodgers potential move? Earth shattering? What'd you call it?
Landscape shift.
Yeah, changes the landscape of the NFL. Does Sam Darnold going to a real what looks to be a pretty good team change anything in that division or no?
The Panthers, of their 11 losses last year, 8 of them were by 1 score, and it does feel like this roster's better. Like this feels like a dark horse team that could.
Rule needs to be a little bit better in-game coaching. That's a thing. And now the other thing too is like Teddy Bridgewater late in games was so slow. He wasn't running up tempo offense. You wonder if Sam Darnold will be able to be better at that. You would think that he is.
We talked about Tua make or break year. This is Sam Darnold's make or break year too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not really, because he's now got a $18 million guarantee for 2022.
Yeah, but I mean, they can still wash their hand. My point is that whether he's going to be a good quarterback or not.
Yeah, it's a pretty big year for him. It's also a pretty big week for the Champions League. It's close to crowning a champion with the 2nd leg of the semifinals coming this week. The K Golazo podcast provides previews, recaps, analysis, and betting tips for Champions League and Europa League. Listen as the team chats with UEFA team insiders to give their picks of which team takes home the Champions League title. The champions! Follow Que Golazo wherever you find this podcast. To the NFC West to wrap up the show. The NFC West will be quick because a bunch of them didn't have picks. The Seahawks got maybe the lowest grade from Pete Prisco of any team, a D for their work in the draft. They had 3 picks and they left with 3 draft prospects. Their first pick was 56th overall. You have to add Jamal Adams to this draft class, I guess. I don't know if that's good or bad. Then they got Trey Brown, the Oklahoma quarterback.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So he gives him a D, but you look at the individual grades, A-.
All from Trapasso.
Trapasso handed.
Sorry.
Yeah, he gave out all the grades. Briscoe did not grade any.
I forgot about that.
That's a reasonable. It's a reasonable situation.
We talked about that yesterday. I was so fired up about it. All right, go ahead.
Anywho, no, go ahead. Talk about it. Go.
Here's the funny thing. So wins over Wilson, just comparing where I had them going and where they actually went, they're 12th. Like this draft class ranked 12th. Now, this isn't including Jamal Adams, but that's certainly fair to do because he is obviously first-round talent. D. Eskridge, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan, I had him going a little lower. I had him going in the middle of the third. He went bottom of the second. And look, there are other needs, and Russell Wilson probably put on the Aaron Rodgers face when the offensive lineman was in the first pick. But I do love the idea of Dwayne Eskridge, D. Eskridge, who is electric. Like he is burner fast. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and D. Eskridge out there is pretty exciting. Trey Brown is a really good cornerback. He's probably plays as physical as any cornerback in this class. He's only 5'9", so they get value there, and they got a ton of value with Stone Forsythe, who I had as a mid-third round pick. He may have to move to right tackle. Maybe he played left tackle at Florida, but again, you're fortifying the offensive line, and you get a really good pick at the bottom of the 6th. I don't have any issue with this draft, given how handcuffed they were with what they were able to do.
I'm always happy with any team that uses their first pick of the draft on a player from the Mid-American Conference. Yeah, and I think Eskridge could be good in that offense. And again, when you are a receiver drafted in, say, the 2nd round, and you have 2 guys in front of you, like Lockett and Metcalf, so you're going to the team, expectations aren't high. All you have to do is be a decent third receiver. I always think that's a perfect spot for someone to go, especially someone coming from the MAC, coming from a smaller school. So I think he could do big things in Seattle. So I don't know if I'm as high as you, Ryan, but I'm definitely not as low as Prisco on the Seahawks draft class.
The Raiders also got a D from Prisco. Prisco said that the skinny on the Seahawks D, they didn't have a lot of picks because of trades. Their 1st and 3rd round picks were the Jets and the Jamal Adams trades, but I didn't love what they did with the 3 picks they had. It was just okay. I love Pete. Reading Pete's play-by-play is just...
I think Prisco handed out 3 Ds. The Texans also got one.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yep. Let's go to the Rams next. The LA Rams also short on picks. They got a B- from Pete Prisco because their 1st round pick acquired Matthew Stafford. One would have to think that matters in Pete's analysis. And then they drafted Tutu Atwell, wide receiver out of Louisville, 5'9", it's 165. Yeah, okay, pal. More like 145. He was their 2nd round pick. Ernest Jones, linebacker from South Carolina, in the 3rd. Bobby Brown in the 4th round, which caused Charles Davis to drop a "it's my prerogative" joke on Rich Eisen's head, and a slew of other late round picks, Wilson.
Yeah, the issue with Tutu Atwell is this. He weighs 149. Again, he's sort of like D. Eskridge, who we just talked about, in that he's a slot guy. You can line up outside if you want to, but he can do a lot of things that we have sort of see these smaller receivers starting to do. But at 149, that's one thing. We talk about durability with Devontae Smith. Good Lord, this guy weighs 15 pounds less than Devontae. And number 2, this is a team with a ton of needs on the offensive line and some on defense. And you have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. You signed Deshaun Jackson. Where's Tutu Atwell going to play? I mean, this is your first pick. And so that was a concern there. I do love that they drafted everyone named Ernest in the draft. That's pretty awesome because you don't see a lot of Ernest walking around these days. I like the Bobby Brown pick. And the funny thing is both Ernest Jones, who went in the 3rd round, and Ernest Brown, who went in the 5th round, felt like they were about a round and a half overdrafted. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I didn't love it. Oh, one other name I'll mention, Jacob Harris. That guy's going to be fun. I didn't have him going as high as the late 4th. I had him as a late 5th, it looks like, but he didn't play a lot of football. He was playing soccer up until late in his high school career. He's like 6'5", 230, plays wide receiver / tight end, so they can have something to work with there, and he's going to be pretty good on special teams early on in his career, looks like.
I'm surprised the Rams turned in any picks, to be honest. They're making the entire draft from a mansion in Malibu that's right on the beach. Sean McVay just chilling out at this pool, infinity pool with the Pacific Ocean in the background. They have an oil painting of freaking Roger Goodell hanging up in the house. I mean, they were living the life.
And I think also they traded back into day 3, so they had another day to stay at the mansion.
Oh, that's why they did that. They're like, all right, guys, we're not packing up our bags. Just keep trading back, and we're staying here for as long as possible. But yeah, everything Ryan said. I thought it was a decent draft.
Oh, and you know what? My bad. That first round pick was not Matthew Stafford. That was Jalen Ramsey. Oh my God, they are going to pick in the first round until 20.
And fun fact, Sean McVay, he has a winning record every season with the Rams, has never had a first round pick since he was hired.
He deserves more love for that because that makes it a lot harder to win football games, and he still manages to do that. The Arizona Cardinals come out of the draft with a B from Pete Prisco. Did you like their draft, Wilson? It started with Zaven Collins. I'll tell you what I loved about their draft. Zaven Collins and Steve Keim, their phone call. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was intense.
We're gonna beep and win. We're gonna win. We're gonna get the biggest beeping Super Bowl ring you've ever seen. He's just swearing up and
I think
down.
he talked about murdering people too. So
yeah, he's like, we're gonna and then Keim is like, keep the intensity, bro. Like he knows he's on camera. He's like, I'm gonna let you talk to our owner, Michael Bidwell. Again, this is our owner, Michael Bidwell. I cannot be more clear. Our owner.
Like, take it down a notch.
Stop saying F-bombs, dude. And Collins was pumped for the draft, and they come back with Rondale Moore in the second round, which I thought was a great value there. Marco Wilson in the fourth. They didn't have a third round pick. They traded for Rodney Hudson, which is a nice little haul there as well, Wilson.
Yeah. This draft class ranked second, wins over Wilson. That's how good this draft class was in terms of where I thought they would go and where they ended up going. They got a lot of value in the second round. Rondale Moore. The only issue with Rondale Moore is I love Rondale Moore and I love the pick. He's basically Andy Isabella. So how many Andy Isabella you need on one team? So I'm wondering what's going to happen there. And Tate Gowan, their 6th round pick, and James Wiggins, their 7th round pick, were both, I thought, 4th and 5th round value. So they did a great job. And Michael Manette, Devo's guy, the center out of Penn State, actually I had as a 6th round pick. They got him late in the 7th. So it feels like they got a lot of value. I just question the Rondale Moore pick, not because I don't like Rondale Moore. I do. Just where do you put him with Andy Isabella literally on the roster?
See ya, Andy.
I was going to say, it feels like they're saying, all right, well, we're going to bring in Rondale Moore, and either him or Andy Isabella is going to take over that spot. And if Andy doesn't step it up, it's not going to be him. And he's only got 2 years left on his contract.
Yeah, that's a second round pick from 2 years ago. You're like, yep, that's a wrap.
I mean, if you have the guy already in hand to replace him, yeah, that's exactly what you do. So
basically swapping out Josh Rosen for Rondale Moore.
I think it's okay. Rondale Moore is actually a better quarterback, which is
unnecessary. Right. Josh Rosen dunking.
Poor Josh Rosen.
No, but I mean, look, if Andy Isabella is not working out, I mean, I think that Steve Keim has certainly cooled his seat in Arizona.
Feels like it, right?
It was nuclear hot after the Rosen debacle, and then managed to survive that. You bring in Kyler Murray. It looks like things are going a little bit better. So I think Cliff Kingsbury's seat will be toasty if this team isn't in playoff contention or doesn't make the playoffs, but they feel pretty set in how they're operating right now.
Yeah, but Cliff Kingsbury has to be a better coach. That was at times hard to watch, the conservatism which what they played.
Wouldn't it be difficult to fire Cliff Kingsbury?
He's so handsome. Yes, it would be. You bring him to the office. You bring me to the office, say, Cliff, I need to talk to you.
But also, if you're Michael Bidwell, you're constantly doing stuff outside of the facility. You're with you're like, hey, Cliff, Steve, we're doing dinner. We're going to do a dinner here. Da, da, da. So you got to dinner with Cliff Kingsbury, and people are just staring at you because you're with somebody so handsome, and you feel more handsome.
Well, Kyle Shanahan was able to make it work with Jimmy G. He moved on from that. So.
Ouch.
Handsomeness doesn't do everything.
Some quarterbacks here. Speaking of the 49ers, they got a C from Pete Prisco in his draft grades, probably because they took Trey Lance 3rd overall. I just don't see trading up with 2 first-round picks as the price to get a guy who is raw and needs time. Lance has skills, but he will need time. That's not redundant, Pete. Good job. If you like Justin Fields better than Trey Lance, you're probably not going to give this a huge grade. And they gave up a ton for him. So I can understand the concern. 2 future first-round picks in addition to number 12 overall. And when the draft actually rolls around, you find out you probably could have given up a 3rd-round pick at most to go up against Justin Fields instead of going all the way up to number 3. But Trey Lance has insane athletic upside. They're going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo around, in my opinion, to let Lance learn. And if Jimmy G stinks or gets hurt, you can put Lance in there. And I tend to think this has. So this reminds me, it's happened to the same guy, but Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes in terms of the upside, both because Lance has the physical skill set, Wilson, but also because of the Kyle Shanahan offense.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I was fine giving Shanahan a pass for Mac Jones doing all that, so I'm certainly going to be fine with Trey Lance, who physically has more tools and just hasn't played a lot of football, and that's the reality of it. And sometimes it just blows up in your face. And sometimes it blows up in your face and you can bounce back from it. See Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy didn't draft him. See Ryan Pace. So they ranked 23rd in wins over Wilson, and they only had one pick that was a value pick two picks, excuse me, that are value picks in terms of them going after I thought they should go. That wasn't until Jalen Moore in the 4th round, early in the 5th round, the offensive lineman out of Western Michigan, and then Talanoa, who what's his name? Huganga. Is that right? I think that's right.
Huganga.
Yeah, the safety out of USC, who actually I liked a lot. I thought he would go in the middle of the 4th round. He went late 5th. So some picks. I mean, the Aaron Banks pick is a home run. He went right where I thought he would go. Trey Sermon, I didn't love him as much as some other running backs.
I love Sermon in terms of his fit with.
But that's what you have to think about. So you give a grade to this guy, you don't know where he's going to go, and then you have to reconsider, just like we did with Chuba Hubbard going to the Panthers. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I thought that Ramondre Stevenson, who actually replaced Sermon at Oklahoma when Sermon transferred to Ohio State, had a better season, but Sermon went higher, and clearly teams, at least one team, liked him more.
And I think one thing, obviously with taking Trey Lance, and there's all this debate about whether or not the 49ers are going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, and Kyle Shanahan has been insistent that that's not going to happen. And I think you look at the 3, 4, and 5 quarterbacks that were taken in this draft, all the head coaches said the same thing after the draft, whether it was Shanahan, Bill Belichick, or it was Ryan Pace, not Matt Nagy in Chicago. They all said, hey, the guy that's already here is the starter right now. But if he gets beat out in training camp, then, we're ready to give the job to the rookie. And I think that has to be your mindset. Shanahan saying, hey, look, Jimmy Garoppolo understands his offense. When he's healthy, he can get us to the Super Bowl. So I don't mind letting him start for one more season, especially because Trey Lance is inexperienced. He's only started 17 games in an entire college career. So if he doesn't come in and grasp everything right away, I'm not going to worry about that because I have Jimmy Garoppolo. So, I don't think that's a horrible philosophy. I think a lot of fans will want to see Trey Lance start from day one. But that's why you have Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think the 49ers made the right move, even if Pete Prisco hates it.
By the way, that was a misspelled word. It's Talanoa Hufanga. I was like, Hufanga doesn't look right. It's Hufanga. Sorry, Talanoa.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, man, look, the 49ers are going to be judged by Trey Lance down the road. And
so how many games do they need to win this year if Jimmy G starts? And then it has to be Trey Lance next year. So what are the expectations over the next 2 years?
That'll be the playoffs.
It's got to be whatever. It's got to be better than whatever Jimmy G did. And you guys said it. It's like this is Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes situation where no matter what happens with Jimmy G, if he takes him to the NFC title game, Alex Smith took them pretty far in 2017. You're giving the job to Trey Lance the following season, no matter what. So maybe Jimmy starts this entire year, even if he gets in the Super Bowl. Maybe it gets dicey if they win the Super Bowl, but as long as that doesn't happen, Trey Lance is your 2022 starter no matter what.
It's pretty crazy that Trey Lance might go 730 days or thereabouts.
That is crazy.
It's like one game with one football game. And or 2 football games, I suppose.
Is Trey Lance riskier than Mac Jones at 3?
No. Mac.
You sure?
I feel like the 49ers will get a pass of sorts if Trey Lance flashes but never puts it together. If they would get killed if Mac was just floor but never ceiling. Now, I mean, it doesn't matter if you win a Super Bowl, ultimately. Yeah,
well, perception wise, that I agree with that. That's right.
Would you rather have stayed put at 12? I mentioned they could have gotten Fields by trading up with a 3. They could have just taken Mac Jones at 12.
In retrospect, that's what you do and keep all your picks. That's right.
Right. Or you keep all your picks and because they traded. I think it is an interesting debate because and we won't linger on it too long, but could the Dolphins have gotten more the day of the draft or in the days leading into the draft rather than trading 5 weeks early? Because once this quarterback started working out, man, the price got jacked up.
They got a ton though.
Yeah.
But the 49ers jacked up the price. So if they don't make that trade, then the price might not have been jacked up. You know, like
I think to move up from outside the top 10 to number 3 in a class with those quarterbacks, it was just going to take that much. I just wonder how much the Bears would have sacrificed. Their whole draft.
Yeah, we'll never.
And two future. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not a unreasonable.
Well, imagine being the 49ers at 12, seeing like Justin Fields available at 10, then you don't have to give up any, you know.
I was saying, or just draft Mac Jones at 12, or you get on the draft comes around Thursday night, the Aaron Rodgers rumors are swirling, and you call Green Bay and say, listen.
Well, they did that anyway.
No, but you would have been a lot easier to trade for Aaron Rodgers with your future first-round picks.
So what do you do at 3 if you trade for Aaron? I guess the 3 has to be part of the deal for Aaron Rodgers.
You draft Kyle Pitts and toss him.
Right, the Packers would have said, "This is what we want."
Yeah,
the Packers probably would have just asked for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, because if you had traded Aaron Rodgers in the draft, you couldn't trade a 2021 pick if it was going to be a post-June 1st trade, which would have helped the Packers cap situation. So the 49ers would have had to draft the player and then trade the player to the Packers.
Would you trade Aaron Rodgers to the Bengals for Joe Burrow?
No.
Listen,
Aaron Rodgers only has 2 or 3 years left. Like you're mortgaging maybe.
Plus, the Bengals aren't ready right now to win. Would you trade?
By the way, Joe Burrow.
I mean, if you're Jacksonville, would you trade Trevor Lawrence for Aaron Rodgers?
By the way, I just got a text from Joe Burrow. He would love to go to Green Bay.
Trade. If you're the Chargers, you wouldn't trade Justin Herbert for Aaron Rodgers, right?
No, you're not. Just because,
I wouldn't if I'm the Chargers. No,
hell no, you wouldn't.
But we saw. I mean, Joe Burrow in the Chargers offense would have been much better than he was last year. He wouldn't have died probably, so we'd have a better sense of that. But if I'm the Bengals, I'm thinking about it. If I'm Brandon Staley, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. The other thing too, with the possibility of the trade from 3, if you're the 49ers, is that if you call the Packers, they're like, all right, like we'll figure this deal out, but just go ahead and draft Kyle Pitts, and then we'll get the deal done. And then the deal falls apart, and you have Kyle Pitts and Jimmy Garoppolo, and you gave up 3 first-round picks for Kyle Pitts. That's sort of a problem. And you can't trade that 3 to the Packers anyway, because it's worth 3 first-round picks, and the Packers aren't going to value it as 3 first-round picks. You know.
There aren't many teams, as I look through them, that I wouldn't trade Aaron Rodgers to. Look, you're trading Aaron Rodgers to the Browns all day long. Like you're not hurting Baker Mayfield.
Oh, easy.
Off on that. Baker be like, I understand. Do it. Yeah, do it.
I mean, the Colts,
the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins would be intriguing.
Oh no,
that's a Super Bowl contender with Rodgers, right?
I was just thinking they're driving to Green Bay and dropping him off.
Like, are they the number 2 team in the AFC behind the Chiefs? If the Dolphins got Rodgers, maybe the number 1.
Yeah,
they went 10-6 with Tua and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's close. Like it's like 2A. Like I put the Bills in there.
Rodgers, the Dolphins, or the Bills. I'll take the Dolphins would immediately be favored to win the division. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. No, that's right. But I think the Bills they're still a really good football team.
The Bills, by the way, are a little cheap to win the division, -150.
Yeah, I mean, there are no teams. Almost no teams. Maybe the Chargers. I mean, I'm trading. Are you trading him to the Buccaneers for Tom Brady?
Oh,
no.
I don't think you can.
No.
You're not trading your Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Super Bowl Brady, yeah. Are you trading him?
To the Ravens. I think he solves a lot of downfield problems.
You know what the thing though is that you could do it without because Lamar Jackson's still on a rookie contract. It's not like you're taking on
Lamar. Just try to win with Aaron Rodgers and run a
run the same offense.
Yeah. Would you do it with the Steelers?
Oh,
of course you would.
Ryan is driving to Green Bay and picking Aaron Rodgers up.
Right. Would you do it with the Eagles? Of course you would. Actually, Debo, you would take Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you thought the Eagles were too far away, to add a quarterback to Rodgers.
Up high, down hard.
All right.
All right, let's go.
It's an hour and a half. Oh, Wilson's got to go to a radio hit, and I was just got a request to do HQ at some point. It said, unfortunately,
you have to eat tacos.
I've got to go celebrate Cinco de Mayo.
All right, boys. Great stuff as always. Talk to you guys later.